His sanctioning name initials all her works. His silence is a signature to her deeds. In the execution of her drama's scheme.
Could I ask you to speak a little more slowly?
Okay, yeah. His sanctioning name initials all her works. His silence is in his signature to her deeds.
No, his silence is his signature, not in his signature.
His silence is his signature to her deeds. In the execution of her drama's scheme, in her fancies of the moment and its mood, in the march of this obvious ordinary world, where all is deep and strange to the eyes that see, and nature's common forms are marvel wefts. She through his witness sight and motion of the might unrolls
not the might, motion of
motion
might.
of might. She through his witness sight and motion of might unrolls the material of her cosmic act. Her happenings that exalt and smite the soul, her force that moves, her powers that save and slay, her word that in the silence speaks to our hearts, her silence that transcends the summit word, her heights and depths to which our spirit moves, her events that weave the texture of our lives, and all by which we find or lose ourselves. Things sweet and bitter, magnificent and mean, things terrible and beautiful and divine.
What a long sentence.
Yeah, very long sentence.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Magnificent.
Magnificent.
Not shent, but okay. Magnificent. Huh?
Magnificent, yeah.
So a lot to talk about here now, and go very, very slowly. The Purusha sanctions everything that the Divine Mother does. Everything. And we see that he even sanctions things that are bitter or sweet.
Mm-hmm.
He sanctions her powers that save and slay.
Mm.
So his silence is his signature to her deeds. In other words, he never speaks out about this. He knows that she is doing everything that needs to be done for the evolution into the higher realms of the supermind and eventually Satchidananda.
Mm.
So in this execution here means, you know what it means, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. In the execution of her drama's scheme. So here we go again with the word drama.
Yeah.
And we always have to remember that this is a play, this earth is a play of the divine who loses himself in order to find himself in innumerable ways.
Mm.
In her fancies of the moment and its mood, in the march of this obvious, ordinary world. Obvious, ordinary world. Why is it obvious and why is it ordinary? Well, he tells us here, where all is deep and strange to the eyes that see. Now he's speaking of not necessarily the third eye, but the awakened eyes that see.
Mm.
we see, otherwise we couldn't see the world. We couldn't begin to understand intellectually why there is so much grief and so much war and so much suffering. So it is indeed a world that's ordinary and that's obvious, but everything is deep and strange to the eyes that see, because they are looking behind and beyond the obvious.
Mm.
How does one look behind and beyond the obvious? There's only one way, and that is opening the psychic being so that one can truly see.
Okay.
And nature's common forms are marvel wefts. You know, I want to get the word weft for you.
Yeah.
It's an important word, and I'll get that in a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Weft. The horizontal threads interlaced through the warp in a woven fabric.
Okay.
Something woven like fabric, all so figurative, marvel wefts. So these common forms are actually marvel wefts. Isn't that extraordinary, huh? What we think is so common, and this is only really captured in essence by the great poets. They can see that a bird is not just a bird. That a man or a woman is not just a physical form, but there's something behind everything. And it takes the poet and the sage and the seer to see that.
We see that.
See those marvel wefts. So she, through his witness sight, so he sees everything, obviously. Through his witness sight and motion of might, unrolls the material of her cosmic act. It's like an interesting dream Mary Helen once had of being in a place that was not the Matrimandia, but it was a huge building. And on the ground, there was a gigantic carpet. And then she sees that Mother is there.
Wow.
And Mother says to everyone, you see, this transformation is not very difficult. All you do is unroll the carpet this way, and it's done. So we have to unroll ourselves in a way to feel who we truly are. So she unrolls the material of this cosmic act, all her happenings that exalt and smite the soul. Why would they smite the soul? To make it progress.
Okay.
And Mother has smitten my soul a number of times. A number of times.
So here he completely moves from his ways to her ways.
But he has no ways because he's the supreme silence,
Silence. Yeah.
and he delegates his force
Yeah.
to the mother, to the
Yeah.
creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, her happenings that exalt and smite the soul, her force that moves, her powers that save and slay. So now we have a very interesting aspect here. The divine creatrix always attempts to save, but sometimes in order to save, she has to slay.
Mm.
And we see that happening in the two great wars,
Mm.
where Sri Aurobindo says that if Hitler wins, it will set the evolution back thousands of years.
Wow.
And yet there were many in the ashram who were for Hitler
Mm.
because they hated the British so much after 200 years of rule.
Mm.
Sri Aurobindo said, no, the divine has to win.
Mm.
So he put all his energy into that, even stopped writing Savitri.
Mm.
He would put even thoughts into Churchill's head.
Mm.
And many of Churchill's speeches so much resemble Sri Aurobindo's speaking that it's unbelievable.
Oh, okay.
Her word. So we have her happenings that exalt and smite the soul, her force that moves, her powers that save and slay,
Slay.
her word, slay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Slay. Yeah.
Her word, capital W,
Mm.
that in the silence speaks to our hearts. Why does he capitalize the W? Because it's the divine word.
Word.
It's not
The
any
highest
word.
word. Yeah.
Yeah. Her silence that transcends the summit word. So her silence is even above that word because it capitalizes that W also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then her heights and depths to which our spirit moves, her events that weave the texture of our lives, and all by which we find or lose ourselves, things sweet and bitter, magnificent and mean, things terrible and beautiful and divine. So if we look at these lines, it's just amazing. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines beginning with the word her.
Her. Yeah.
6 lines. Something that everyone will say impossible to do in poetry. You cannot carry this off. And now we see her happenings, her force, her word, her silence, her heights and depths, her events that weave the texture of our lives. Well, the moment we become even a little conscious, we see that many events can move us, and they can be sweet or bitter.
Mm.
They can be terrible, or they can be mean.
Mm.
It depends on the state of our consciousness and where we are.
Mm.
If we react to someone else's anger,
Mm.
we are in a low consciousness.
Yeah.
Buddha says those people need our compassion even more.
Mm. Mm.
So it's such a beautiful line, these 2 lines, things sweet and bitter.
Bitter.
when I was doing the Matrimandia Gardens in the nursery, this wonderful lady used to come and visit us, elderly lady. She was married to the man who founded TVS Sundaram,
Okay.
a huge conversation, very extremely wealthy lady. And I would help her with her garden. Eventually, I even sent a man to help her prune. And when she would invite us to dinner, there was always something sweet and something bitter.
Mm.
She said that in South India, this is in the Brahmin class, of course,
Yeah.
one had to taste everything with equanimity.
Yeah.
So there was bitter gourd,
Mm-hmm.
and there were other dishes. Of course, she had chefs doing everything, and it was wonderful. But it was a good point that she made, that we have to understand and appreciate things that are bitter, things that are magnificent. Mean here means low.
Okay.
Not nasty, but and things terrible and beautiful and divine. What an incredible line. Things terrible and beautiful
and divine.
Does it explain it enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay, we can carry on. So now it's he for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Her empire.
Her empire in the cosmos she has built. He is governed by her subtle and mighty laws. His consciousness is a babe upon her knees, his being a field of a vast experiment. Her endless space is the playground of his thoughts. She binds to the knowledge of the shapes of time.
To knowledge.
She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time and the creative error of limiting mind and chance that wears the rigid face of fate, and her spot of death and pain and nescience. His changed and struggling immortality. His soul is
is that a comma or a period? I think it's a period, is it not?
It's a period at mortality, yeah. I thought I'll go two more. That it's two more lines, so I thought I would do that also.
Sure.
His soul is a subtle atom in a mass. His substance a material of her works.
Oh, for her works.
For her works. Okay. Today I'm making a lot of errors.
Yes. That's okay. It's okay. So the first thing he tells us, her empire in the cosmos she has built. He is governed by those laws. They're very subtle and they're very mighty. His consciousness is just like a little child upon her knees.
Mm-hmm.
His being, now this is very important, his being is the field of her vast experiment.
Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful. Her endless space is simply the playground of his thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we see again and again, this whole wide world is only he and she.
Yeah.
She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time. Okay, she binds to knowledge. What does she bind to knowledge? She binds his changed and struggling immortality. The other lines are parenthetical phrases.
Hmm.
She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time and the creative era of limiting mind and chance,
Ah, understood. Okay.
wears the rigid face of fate and her sport of death and pain and nescience, his
Nations. Is
age.
that how it's pronounced? Nations?
Nescience, yes,
Nations.
nescience.
Okay.
So these are the words that you're going to have to learn. You're going to see a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Nescience,
Nations.
inconscience,
Mm-hmm.
inane.
Mm-hmm.
We've had already a few of them.
Yeah.
The inconscience, the inane, nescience, nescient.
Nations. Yeah.
And we can look at both nescience and nescient for a moment. So,
We did come across this word already. I
yes,
just forgot how to pronounce it.
yeah.
Nations. Yeah. But now I have got it. Like you said it along with the inconscience. So now there is a association in the mind. So I will not forget again.
Nescience, Sri Aurobindo says, is nescience in nature is the complete self-ignorance. But nescience in general is absence of knowledge or awareness, ignorance.
Hmm.
So all of this, she binds to knowledge of the shapes of time
Hmm.
and the creative era of limiting mind. Very, very interesting term. The creative era of limiting mind. Why does he say that? Because no matter how creative the mind is, it always sees the world in dual terms:
Mm-hmm.
good and bad, truth and falsehood, hate and love.
Yeah.
So it's a creative mind,
Yeah.
but it is a limiting error. Okay, where are we?
She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time and the creative error of limiting mind, and chance that wears the rigid face of fate.
Now that's interesting because Sri Aurobindo tells us there really is no chance.
Mm-hmm.
Chance does not exist in the world. You and I have not met by chance. I have not met Nilisha and Alina and all these hundreds of people by chance. And my next reading next week is going to be exactly on that, Mother's words,
Mm.
that we have all been with her before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to this. So we have chance that wears, chance only wears the rigid face of fate, because even fate can be changed, he says in Savitri, by an unchanging will.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, we can change our fate. We can easily change our fate.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to progress within to do that.
Yeah.
We cannot do it mentally.
Mm-hmm.
We have tried so many times.
Mm-hmm.
We have founded so many ashrams and so many communes and so many new age systems and places of habitat. And everything falls apart in 20, 25 years. Nothing's left. Or it becomes static like the Theosophical Society. The only thing that has lasted more than 50 years now is Oroville, because that is her creation, and it cannot fail.
Mm-hmm.
In Savitri, he says, I know that thy creation cannot fail. So we've seen the creative era of this mind that is so limited. We see that chance is wearing the face of fate. And the Divine Mother's sport of death and pain and nescience, that has always been for me one of the most difficult things to understand on the mental level. And actually, indeed, it cannot be understood on the level of our ordinary mind. How can I explain an Idi Amin, a Stalin, a Hitler, and the deaths of millions and millions of people? Can I call that a sport of the divine? Not with this consciousness. I have to go so much higher and rise into those areas where I see that all is a play of the divine. Good and evil are just two different aspects of this divine play, working towards a greater harmony and a greater unity. But it's difficult for the average mind to understand this. We have to go much higher. And what does she do? She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time, his changed and struggling immortality. Why would he have struggling immortality? Well, there were so many disciples would write to Sri Aurobindo and say, why do you have to redo your poetry dozens of times when you're the divine? Not like us who are struggling to understand something and to write something, and we have to pray and we have to open, but you're the divine, you can do it. And he said, if I did not appear to you on your own level, you would never accept me, except as the divine. So I have to show you the way through the human form. What a sacrifice the Lord makes to take birth in human form. Because every time he does, he has to suffer. Krishna is killed. Christ is crucified. Aurobindo has to give up his body to put it in the earth. So it's a great sacrifice, and that's why he says his changed and struggling immortality. He's immortal. Still he has to struggle.
Yeah.
He has to struggle in the human form. So we could go on a little bit longer if you like.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
His soul is a subtle atom in a mass, his substance a material for her works. His spirit survives amid the death of things. He climbs to eternity through being's gaps. He's carried by her from night to deathless light. This grand surrender is his free will's gift. His pure transcendent force submits to hers.
So that needs some discussion. Because his force is transcendent. It is all powerful. He could do anything, but he submits it to her.
Yeah.
And even his soul is a subtle atom in a mass. His substance, a material for her works. And his spirit survives amid the death of things. Certainly, it's immortal, it's transcendent. But he climbs to eternity through being's gaps. That's a very difficult line.
He climbs to eternity through being's gaps.
In all of us, collectively and individually, we have many gaps in us, many holes that are not yet filled with the divine light. And he climbs to eternity through those gaps, through our progress. I had to ask Sri Aurobindo directly for that answer. I didn't have it. And he is carried by her. Now, this is the creative force, so he does not capitalize the H, her. It's not the Divine Mother. It's the creatrix of the world.
Okay.
He is carried by her from night to deathless light. And he capitalizes night and light.
And the lights, yeah.
Why does he capitalize night? Because he is personifying it for us. He's telling it is, in fact, a conscious being. Night. It's just not darkness. Night is a conscious being. And he is carried by her. He's carried by her. He allows him, first, remember, he allows his chest to be the place for
her to dance. Yeah.
Now he is carried by her. He allows himself to be carried by her from night to deathless light. This grand surrender. Oh, so now the word surrender comes in. And you should look up surrender a bit on our website, because surrender in this yoga is everything.
Yeah.
It is not at all a negative.
Yeah.
It's our being's free will offering to the divine.
Yeah.
And it's his free will's gift. It's a gift, because obviously divine doesn't have to work to surrender. He's divine. It's his free will's gift. His pure transcendent force submits to hers. We've read a lot today, almost one page, so we'll stop there for today, I think.
Sure.
And if you have any questions, we can go over them.
I think we did explain quite in detail, so no questions, but just one thought where he's explaining, like where you said we have the gaps. It also reminded me of the gap in our breath. So, like when we are really in tune or really aligned, when we really observe our breath, we can really catch the gap. And I have read or heard from many that, even that is the glimpse where you reach the divine. It's through the gap of thoughts and it's through the gap of the breath that you get in touch with the divine. So I was just wondering if there is a connection or is it a stretch?
No, I don't think it's a stretch at all, because the word gap just means an opening. A gap is an opening. We have a gap in the forest where there's an opening and there's a beautiful, beautiful field, and the trees are around it, but it's a gap in the forest. There can be a gap in the rocks where one can get through. So through that gap in our breath, or even in the stopping of the heart, which the yogis can do,
Mm.
they make that contact.
Mm.
So you're correct. It's a good thought.
Mm.
Very useful. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.